just quick introduction. We brought Rippling in. We really like their products, their kind of wide gamut of services. So, gentlemen, I'll let you introduce yourself and we'll get going.
All right. Thank you, Michelle. Welcome, everybody. Yes, as Christine said, both of us just got back late last night from digital. It was a great week, but my name is Mark Montpa. I've been at Rippling for about 3 years now. Been a longtime member in this space, going back to many years at Wolters Kluwer, was with XCM for a while, BotKeeper, Field Guide, and now Rippling. So, been a part of our growing accountant, HR, and fractional CFO channel. Mike?
Great. Thanks, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Triantos. I'm the Vice President of Sales for our accountant program here at Rippling. Just a brief background on myself. I've been in executive leadership positions supporting the accounting community for the past 20 years, spending time at TriNet, my own company that I co-founded by the name of Zoomin, as well as Gusto, Giraffe, and now Rippling. So I've known Christine for quite some time. I will let everyone know we are not related. Um, but that's an inside joke that we always run at conferences as well. So thank you
Thought we
everyone for
were
attending.
cousins. I thought that was the
We're distant cousins. That's
we're
right.
distant cousins. Yeah, we
Yep.
have done the lineage just to prove it, but yeah. But yeah, no, so I know my internet is shoddy. I'm in Dallas for the Insurance Success Conference, but just thank you guys so much for joining us. And like you guys said, you guys have been in this space for a really long time, so we're excited to have you here. But you understand the CAS community, right? And you understand what's needed from that advisory perspective. And we've talked a lot about the way that we bring vendors to our vendor corner and to our Infinite Ties community is really like, what is it that, how are you guys different? What are you doing that, other products might not be doing, but how can you help them upskill their advisory services to their clients? And we talked a lot. And so we're going to like go through some stuff, but I do highly recommend, they're just going to show you some stuff and we're going to get to the advisory piece, but also reaching out because there's so much within their product that we're gonna like not be able to touch on everything because you guys do so much. And so I just wanted to let our community kind of know what that looks like, and they can reach out to you too. But we are going to get to the advisory piece once we get through kind of your core basic stuff.
Sounds good. All right.
All right. So yeah, as Christine just mentioned, just we'll do a quick overview of Rippling just to kind of set the stage so that everyone kind of is grounded. Mike will then deliver on the workforce advisory piece and what that ultimately means to you and how it can help you grow your practice. We'll talk a little bit about our brand new and revised accountant partner program, where this will allow you guys to work with us and how that might work. And then we'll even open up for a Q&A. I believe Michelle has allowed you guys to come off mute and ask questions. So please, if something does come up, please feel free to fire away. So before I get started, I do want to just, kind of set the stage as to what Rippling is, where we're different, why we why we're so important now in this particular space. So first off want to just make sure that Rippling is not just a payroll solution. There's a lot of other things that we do. And as we've been out, it is interesting to hear that, oh, you guys are the company that does payroll. And so I want to just sort of set the stage that there's more to Rippling than just that. Next slide. So a little on a few of the accolades. Today, we've been in business since around 2016, about 25,000 customers globally. We have about 1,200 or so active partners that we work with. And then the company has grown tremendously during that particular time. We're, right north of about 5,300 employees in multiple different countries. You see a couple of the other, 5 stars on the right that you can get out there and take a look at. But we have been doing a lot within the community, and we're excited to talk a little bit more about it. So One of the main reasons that Rippling is different from some of the other vendors that are out there is that we do have one unified platform from the beginning stages of a company's life cycle to where they are, finding employees all the way through to, offboarding. And we do this in a matter of being able to do this both domestically and globally, which means you don't need to have if you do have companies that have people in other countries, you're not having to go out and find another like third party aggregator to work with that. You can actually manage everybody within one unified platform that houses all of the different things that are related to an employee. So this application is really about not what the employee does for the company, the role, the responsibilities that they do, but also what are the roles and how do they work as far as earning money for the goods and services that company may be producing. So it's everything that is centered around the employee. Think about Salesforce.com and what they did from the customer perspective. And then also think about even your social media platforms like your Instagrams, your Facebooks around your personal social platform. Rippling is the only company out there that has been focused around the employee. So a little bit on just to kind of break out from the product standpoint and where that half moon that you just saw a second ago kind of plays in. So we do have obviously the HR and payroll components. We have the talent side, our finance piece, as well as the IT piece, but also focusing more around like on the services that we're also able to provide, which what does allow us to have our own PEO, which obviously is everything around benefits, and then HR services only, which would be everything that a PEO would have, but without the benefits. And then, of course, being able to manage everything globally. But each one of these tiles, if you will, are part of the application. So the employee graph that starts at the bottom of this is really the center of how Rippling is ultimately built. So if you think about if I have the employee graph that houses what that employee does, where they live, their roles, their responsibilities, then you're just layering in the certain attributes or products that you would need to run that particular company. And that's where you would start to get the benefits, your payroll, your time and attendance, credit cards, you name it. When I make a change to that employee, it will ripple to all of the other products that that company ultimately has. Now, how does that lead into workforce advisory? Mike's going to talk a little bit about that now, but if you think about if we have this unified platform and everything is sort of centered around that employee, it will allow you to do more and analyze and help your companies grow, manage, and scale their business. So, Mike.
All right. Christine, do you want to kick this session off here for a bit, and then I will go ahead and introduce Workforce Advisory to the Infinite Ties community?
Sure, sure. And so I'm going to see if this helps with the sound and bring this closer to me. But yeah, so when we think about advisory and, that whole wheel that Mark, you just went through, I think that there's just so much to it, right? And we talk a lot about, you know, um, I mean, we've been honest, everyone is at vendor software overload, right? And so it's just a space where we're just trying to figure out where we can come in and add value to our clients. So with that, all of the things that come into this advisory is that it's telling the story, right? And so what is it that this product can give you that you can tell the story and you can do that proactive planning with your clients? And so I'm really excited about this piece. And I do want to reiterate too, like we think of Rippling, and I think that Rippling is leading the way in this payroll space. And so it's exciting to watch. But we talk about Rippling coming in as like that payroll first. And so I don't even know if that's necessarily the case, but I know that it's best with payroll. And so, at the end, we'll talk about that a little bit too on how, you know, we're honest on how CAS firms utilize payroll, but I think that that's the first in. But making it look like that in has so much value from this workforce advisory standpoint, Mike. And I think you guys are doing some really cool stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Christine. And so for the community here, I just wanted to kind of ground ourselves a little bit into what workforce advisory really is. And I need to start at the foundational layer here. Mark just spoke about that one of the key things around rippling is centered around this concept around the employee graph. And what that really means on the rippling end is we house all of the data at the employee level across all of our applications. And I'll provide an overview of those applications, which we have HR, finance, and IT. And there's a plethora of data that comes into that employee graph. And that employee graph is driven by permissions and the role of that employee within the organization. That's the foundational layer of the first piece of workforce advisory is a unified data platform across all three of those areas. Once again, HR, finance, and IT. Where I believe CAS is going in the next evolution is trying to centralize the data sources within your CAS practice, whether that's in CAS 1.0 or financial CAS or CAS 2.0 or business insight CAS. It's really around the consolidation of the data. Because once you have the consolidation of the data, the second piece of workforce advisory starts coming to life. And with Rippling, what we are able to enable firms to do once the data architecture is in from that unified perspective is to set up hundreds of automated workflows across your end clients to drive efficiency, not only for yourself as a CAS practice, but more importantly, also your end client. So once again, step one is the unified data. Step two is the automation of the workflows to make it efficient for the delivery. What sets up the most important layer is now the advisory piece. Because once we have the data, once we have the workflow set, now we can bring all of that to life as it relates to the dashboards, the insights that are going to drive the advisory discussion across your CAS practice. Now, I know for the Infinite Ties community is that everyone's at different stages of their CAS evolution and their CAS maturity. And no matter where you're at in this journey, you can bring workforce advisory to life. And let me start by just kind of giving a little bit of an overview here about what I'm referring to as we kind of bring that to life. So this is the concept that CP.com has brought to market. And I'm sure everyone is extremely familiar with this in terms of financial CAS and business insight CAS. And here is what we're talking about is when we start thinking about the different roles and the services across your CAS practice. And once again, I understand that everyone's at different journey steps here, where we're talking about accounting services, core bookkeeping services, and then we move into more controller services, or if you're doing any type of budgeting and forecasting with FP&A, and then what we call CFO, or maybe even what I call COO services. Okay. And once again, depending on where you're at in your journey, you may be doing parts of this, you may be doing, certain pieces of this. But, as you kind of think about your services that you're bringing to market for your end customers and your entrepreneurs and business owners, it looks something like this for the most part. Where under accounting, core bookkeeping, you're focused on the monthly close. You may be focused on AP, AR. You may have a whole host of different services that you're doing under your financial CAS. Under controllership services, you're working on things that are more internal control related. Those things may be around spend, budgeting, BVA analysis, those types of services. FP&A, of course, is the forecasting component, and then the CFO is more strategic planning. And the way we think about workforce advisory on the Rippling side is how do you turn a lot of these services into advisory where you're using our software to power your advisory strategy. So when we think about this through the different applications that Rippling brings to market that Mark just touched upon under the HR, finance, and IT area, this is a way that we kind of think about it here on the Rippling side. So when you're thinking about your advisory services and what you can do to add this to your current packages that you currently go to market with most firms doing bundling of services under maybe a 3 package model. One of the first things I would be thinking about on the very beginning of this journey is what does the workforce really look like for the entrepreneur and business owner? Are they all domestic? Do they have plans to go global? In terms of their workforce, what countries will they maybe operating in? If they're going to be operating globally, how do they want to set up that entity structure? How do they want to pay those employees? Do they want to do it through their current entity? Do they want to do it through employee of record? This is all how you can be thinking about adding workforce advisory around how your end client thinks about their workforce, both at a domestic perspective and possibly a global perspective. Now, the other thing that we do on the Rippling side, just like other payroll companies out there as well, is that we're going to do all of the compliance related to that. And so that advisory layer for yourself, depending on if you're doing managed payroll or you're basically just outsourcing it to companies like Rippling, is that we have a whole host of advisory and compliance areas around state and federal compliance, as well as global compliance as well. So these are things to be thinking about in terms of how you can layer in additional advisory services working with your clients around their workforce, around global payroll, US payroll, bill pay, as well as general compliance services as well. So I'm going to pause there. Does anybody have any questions so far? All right. I will take that as a no. All right. So when we start moving through these different sets of services, one of the things I think about in way firms could capitalize on this workforce advisory is it's not just the software itself around these areas. So we're moving into what I consider to be a little bit more controller services, where you're doing expense, you're doing corporate cards, you're doing things like travel. These are all built into Rippling. And how I think about it from an advisory standpoint, working with your clients, is how do I come up with the right policies to advise my clients around their expenses, their corporate card controls, their travel policy that they have? What's that look like in terms of the different roles that they have within the organization? So when we think about just the software layer, that's one way of delivering this advisory. But to me, it's all around how you set up the internal controls and policy that basically has the software run those policies by these different permissions and roles. And once again, I'm coming back to the employee graph again, because that's the center of everything that kind of cascades to all of this. So how I would be thinking about this for your advisory services is not just, hey, we're doing expense through a piece of software. We're doing corporate cards through a piece of software. We are basically doing travel through a piece of software. It's really around how you're advising your clients to set up their policies to ensure that they're containing their costs across those areas. And more importantly, what's that look like now on a month in, month out basis across their budget versus actual. So you're always advising them and monitoring those things, saying, we are up on our expenses in our G&A group this month. We are actually over those expenses because of X, Y, and Z. I need to advise our clients that they need to basically control those costs over the next 2 months to make sure they're in line with their overall operating plan and budget that they put in place this year. I'm going to pause there. Any questions so far? Christine, Michelle, anything from your end?
I think we're good. This is good. I mean, I know that there's a lot of questions around the details when we get into that, but I don't want to
You
get too
bet.
far into the weeds just because what you
Yeah.
have coming up is I feel like not that this isn't cool, but cooler.
Yeah. So as I kind of continue on this whole journey, and it doesn't mean that, once again, that under this headcount planning advisory piece that you have to be doing FP&A services in order to bring this to life. But Rippling has a specific module in Rippling called headcount planning. And really what that is advising your clients around not only their current workforce, but what the current forecast looks like by the different roles that they have. That forecast may go out next month. That forecast may go out the next current or the current fiscal year. That forecast can go out the next 2, 3 years. So they can really start thinking through what their cost structure may be around their head count plan in the different roles that they have to basically see how that's going to impact their cash flow. And we'll show you an example of this in an upcoming slide from a visual perspective, because that's what the advisory discussion is going to be around, getting that unified data layer in, turning that into the dashboards and insights so you can have that monthly advisory discussion with your clients. Now, I'm going to not hit every single bullet point here, but one of the things that you can do within Rippling is this compensation piece. Well, how do I think about that from an advising perspective? The first thing to think about is, what are the roles within the organization for your client? What are the different levels within those roles? I'll give you an example. Like, let's say they have a sales organization. Most companies do. They may have different account executive levels that have different OTE structures, maybe a level 1, maybe a level 2, maybe a level 3. Okay. Advising them on those different levels and compensation structures creates those levels within Rippling. And then in addition to that, helps with the headcount planning and advisory that I just spoke about as well. And that also helps kind of contain cost over the compensation strategy for the organization as well, making sure that they're bringing the right roles into the company at the right level and the right compensation. Because this is all about, once again, containing cash flow, but also forecasting that cash flow as well as it relates to people. Because as we all know, that's not only the biggest cost, but also the biggest revenue generator for the organization. I get into a little bit of other things on the bottom there. And I think the way to kind of be thinking about when I say grant allocation or job costing, those types of things, the better way for you guys to visualize this or think about this is Rippling has vertical software configuration by different industries. So maybe an industry that needs timekeeping and scheduling and how to allocate that correctly across the workforce. They may be a nonprofit. So how do we set up those different grant allocations and have it move to the GL, not only at a class level, but also dimensional level within the GL? Because we're connected to not only NetSuite, it's Sage Intacct, QBO, and we have the ability to go down to dimensional levels that ultimately flow right into the GL. And if you have that structure set up in the GL, it makes it a lot stronger for you to do that advisory discussion at month end around those specific areas. The last piece under what I call CFO or COO, and it doesn't mean that you need to be doing business insights here to deliver these things. You can do this in the earlier stages of your cash journey. I call it around talent advisory. Well, what's that really mean? This is our talent platform. And what's in there under the talent platform that Mark showed a little bit earlier are things like applicant tracking, learning management, making sure that when they onboard, they're taking all of their compliant courses, including customizing courses that you can go ahead and create or advise or consult on for that particular industry and workforce. Okay, that's where performance management is located. One-on-one reviews are also in there as well. That's the whole talent advisory piece. Once you have that full picture from all these different areas that I just showed to you, now we can start thinking about the fully labored labor burden around labor capacity, labor cost. And the last thing I'll touch upon is our IT cloud. Okay. This is the area what I consider to be more internal controls and efficiencies, where we have the ability to do single sign-on across all of their SaaS apps. Okay. So think about an employee coming on board and immediately they need to get access to 5 or 6 different SaaS apps. If that is in the employee graph based on their role and what applications they need, right when they get into Rippling, they would have those applications available to them, such as Microsoft Office or Google. There's many different things, or Slack or Teams or those types of things is what we're talking about here. And then lastly, under our IT services, we could be advising and creating internal controls around laptop provisioning, because that's what Rippling does. We can send a laptop out fully provisioned for that employee in that role. And more importantly, it's around internal controls around device management and inventory management around those areas. So this is
And Mike,
how,
can we
go
like
ahead.
I love this. Like this is like one of the coolest things I think because I think part of this is yes, this is advisory, right? And how can you capitalize? But also, your clients are looking to you to be just the trusted advisor and
That's
who's
right.
in your back pocket that you trust, right? And so this IT management, I think, is huge because you can take these companies that make it look like they're just organized and bigger, and structured because you guys are managing the inventory. You're and I hope I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but you guys manage, like if say a company has 50 laptops, whatever, you will house those. You will keep them in storage and then tell Ripley what we want on this laptop and then new employee starts, you send it out, everything's just already loaded on their machine and then all of the instructions go out from there.
That,
Same with terminations, right?
that's exactly right, Christine. That's exactly right. And when I think about what I talked about earlier, remember that it's the unified data layer, the workflow automation. When you think about an automation for an onboarding for an employee, there could be 50 steps or processes related to that. I need to get the offer letter out. I need to get the offer letter signed. Who's going to approve that, right? Who's going to provision them in all of the applications? Um, what compliance training do they need to take in their first 2 weeks when they're onboarded with your company, right? There's a whole host of processes and sub-processes that take place. You can create this onboarding workflow that does all of that with one click of a button. Once you set that up, that's the efficiency piece within the CAS practice that can be completed or at the end client perspective as well. So when I say automated workflows, it has a dual advantage, not only for the firm itself in terms of efficiency of delivery, but also for that end client as well, of course.
Right.
So those are
Yeah.
just all process triggers that take place by automating those workflows. And once you do that, now the advising piece comes to life.
Exactly.
Okay. And I'm just giving a couple examples here, so It's about client impact. So, the biggest thing that we're doing is we're kind of moving from that kind of transactional piece to really kind of what's driving the insights across this unified platform layer, and then the automation as well. And one of the graphics that you see on the far right is kind of a spend, graphic. What is happening within the business as it relates to certain things like travel or expenses. And you can break it down by department levels. This is the type of graphs and insights that I would be looking at and reviewing with the client when you're going over, their monthly close, and you're going through how they're doing against their budget versus actual, and you're actually seeing the data right here of what's driving the overage, what's driving the underage on this. How do we need to change this? We had 5 exceptions on our travel policy that we approved last year that drove a higher expense that month. How do we put those internal controls in place to make sure those employees are booking travel ahead of time using the right hotels and those types of things? Because that's what the Rippling travel module does. Okay. So those are the things that I'm talking about when I say get the unified data, get the automation of the workflows. Now let's turn those into the advisory dashboards so you guys can have meaningful discussions every single month with your clients.
And Mike, a couple weeks ago here in our community, we had a whole webinar about how to be advisory with payroll.
Yep.
And this makes that process so much easier, right? So you have this offers accepted. If this is out of whack, this is how we start having those conversations. Are you not at market value? Who are your competitors? And this is a nice way to have that information. We're not having to dig in and pull that out of, build pivot tables or anything to be able to find this information.
Yeah, exactly, Michelle. And I think let's get it back to the payroll piece for a second. We put a budget in place for compensation by department, right? And so basically what we're seeing there is like, hey, the sales department is actually running a little bit over this particular month. Why is that the case? Oh, well, we had to actually do a couple signing bonuses above our initial projections. We actually had to bring a couple sales reps up at a different level than what we were forecasting, right? These are all real things that happen every single day in an organization. So, what can we do to get that back on track or reforecast the business so we basically understand what the impact's going to be in the future months? And I think about the sales piece here too, Michelle. It's like, okay, we have 45 salespeople accepted. What is our time to hire using our applicant tracking system to hire those individuals? Are we on target? Are we off target? And if we're off target, what's our ramp to revenue for those sales roles? And if we're off, it's going to change our revenue projections as well. This becomes a real life advisory and discussion for the entrepreneur to say, hey, we need to basically get better at basically getting our salespeople hired in time to meet our revenue projections that we have.
This is also where we come in and be really advisory, especially for those entrepreneurs where they might not know what their hiring targets are. So we can go back and look at revenue and say, did we see a drop or did we see an increase? And we also see an increase in hours because we didn't have enough folks to cover that. And we
That's
help
right.
them get to their target, their hiring target ahead of time because they don't have any historical data to really understand what those spots are. So I
Yep.
think these are really good insights where we can take, what we consider payroll data, but is really projection and analysis data and start building in, here's your revenue target when you need to start bringing in people at these different levels and these different positions. And then also with kind of you being able to departmentalize that, you can break that out and say, okay, if we, bring in more sales folks and our revenue jumps by 10% because we brought those in, what do we need for engineering? Like, that's going to trigger other hiring requirements, and
That's
that just
right.
helps us be able to forecast that out for them
Yep.
and really have a really, because I think what happens with our clients is they'll come in, they really think about the production side of things, whether that's manufacturing or professional services, and they forget
Right.
about all of those other levels that also trigger, right? If this goes up, then you need another person for this too. And so all of these insights really help you build that out for them and make them think about all of that. And then in addition, it's not just the salaries. Your client's tax liability is going to go up when you start hiring these folks. Benefits are going to go up. And this helps trigger all of those conversations.
100%, Michelle. And I think the benefits piece is spot on as well, just to make sure that you're advising them on the right, funding strategies and those types of things around what they need to do to attract and retain their employees and what that looks like from a renewal standpoint. These are all things that is the data is all in on Rippling to basically be able to have those discussions. And the other way I kind of look at it as well, depending on where you're at in your cash journey. But if you are doing all of the services within your CAS that I kind of outlined a little bit earlier, from kind of core accounting and bookkeeping to controller services to FP&A and CFO, those roles now have kind of more of a 360 view of all the data within Rippling and can use these different areas of the application for their advising.
And
So
and
that's, oh,
Right,
go
and
ahead,
all of
Michelle.
this
Yeah,
ties in, right? So you may have excellent revenue, but your cash collection is awful because you don't have anybody out there pounding on doors saying, pay me. And that'll also stunt your hiring growth. So all of this ties in so nicely, but it really starts with this payroll data. What do
yeah.
we need? When do we need them? And can we afford them? And that starts here.
Yeah, and I know you guys are doing that all day long on the APAR. It's like, you got to change, from a 30-day to 15-day for cash flow purposes. Like that's like the building blocks of the whole advisory piece there on accounting and bookkeeping as well. So the other layer here is like, I mentioned the headcount piece, right? And this is a little bit of a visual here that comes out once you basically build this structural data within Rippling. So we know like all the new hires, all of the future start dates, the open headcount, and this goes out, not only by month, but by year as well. So we can really start looking at projections of where the entrepreneur and the management team wants to take the company in the next 12, 24, and 36 months and start thinking those through by these different levels in different department structures so they can have a solid view of what this is going to be impacting their overall growth and P&L as well. So, like the headcount planning, I think once again is a very key piece to unlock and start having these advisory discussions month in and month out with your management team of your clients. And then lastly, I just wanting to make sure I'm looking at the time here to make sure that we have plenty of room for Q&A. The other thing that we wanted to share is that we have what's known as the Client Command Center. I know you guys are working with a bunch of different technology partners, but this is like the partner portal, if you will. And this is where you manage air traffic control across all of your clients, security permissions, and it's a way to do more bulk updates, bulk transactions across different clients. I will tell you, this is a big focus for Rippling going into next fiscal year, where we are looking at ways to take some of those automations and workflows and basically putting them into packages so you can launch those to different clients faster as part of the implementation and setup. That's one of the things that we're going to be working on in terms of one of our key initiatives within our client command center to make it more efficient to onboard new customers in Rippling. And we have an entire roadmap associated with this as well. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to add on to, all the things that you guys are talking about, Michelle saying, like, this is a really great time to, well, and I would like to talk about that here in a second, Mike, about the onboarding piece, but
Yep.
it's just such a good time because we're in budget mode, right? You should be in that budget mode with your clients for the next fiscal year. But, to your point, and I know you did this a lot at Giraffe though, but what does the next 3 years look like, right?
Yeah,
And so when you do that really well with your advisors and you're really helping them, like you should they should be calling you too, or they should have that budget in place that says, hey, firm, when Michelle and I are doing this, hey, we're looking to hire these people in these months. Do you think that that looks like a good projection for us and our ROI? And what is that going to do to
yeah,
our year-end distributions? And what does that look like? Also, too, it's helping those clients. We bring stuff to the table in one pagers, and I think taking your data and telling the story is also, do you have some of these salespeople, like, do we need to restructure their compensation? What do we need to
yeah,
do? But you need to make decisions faster because this is how it's going to impact your bottom line. And that's how we always resonated with clients is like, here's what's going into your pocket, or here's the capital that you're going to need to invest in the company if you don't make quick decisions. And I
yeah,
think that a lot of this reporting is just allowing for that storytelling and the quick
yeah.
decisions.
Yeah, and Christine, I look at it, even if you're not doing like the FP&A solution or CFO, I always think that you should always be working with your clients at least on their budget for the next year. And whether that just sits in QBO or, outside of that, at least you know how to benchmark their BVA every single month, right? Especially with the data that we are bringing alive here to make sure they're on track, at least to their current budget and operating plan.
Yeah, when we're talking about budget, especially now, if you've got your smaller clients, one of the things I walk my clients through is, okay, you're going to have an audit trigger next year because you've got a debt covenant agreement that requires it, and you've got some areas of internal control issues. And so if we come in and we bring in a tech team, if we bring in an HR team, if we bring in all of these teams, this is what I think it's going to cost you versus we can have it all housed within something like Rippling. And this is how we're going to make what you need cost effective. So you're not hiring teams of people that you now have to manage internally and pay internally. This is a great way to outsource it in one package.
Yep, that's right, Michelle. And so I'm looking at the time because I just want to make sure I can go over a couple quick things and then open it up for Q&A. As Mark talked about at the very beginning of the call, we are launching our new accountant program, and this is actually going live on 2/1. Our fiscal year, just so you know, goes from February 1st to January 31st. And so we are launching our new accountant program, and Infinite Ties Community is the first community getting a sneak peek of the new partner program. We worked very closely with our Rippling Partner Advisory Council over the past several months to kind of design this program. And so they had heavy influence into the new program. And one of the things they wanted to make sure that we did is kind of the key tenets is making sure that you guys were in position to strengthen client relationships as part of our program, help you streamline operations, and then also create areas for you to have scalable revenue growth. So when I think about, affecting your guys' bottom line, I think about it in two different ways. One is how you can monetize workforce advisory based on what I just described within your cash practice. That's number one. And then the second one is how can you tap into different ways within our partner program for more additional scalable growth and revenue? Okay. And so this probably looks very familiar in terms of different partner programs, but we are introducing 5 tiers here from our new initial partner level tier all the way up to our platinum partner tier. And basically what you're able to unlock as either a referrer or a reseller partner, and I'll provide those distinctions here in just a bit, you can unlock different rewards as part of our new partner program. Okay. Now, there's two ways to do partnerships with Rippling. One is you have a client that you want to refer directly to us. We contract directly with that end client. Okay. And we do and support you throughout the entire sales process with our channel account executives. Okay. So we are heavily involved in that process. We are contracting directly with your end client. You provide us that referral. And then basically what you're seeing here is the eligibility across these different tiers. And just so you understand, what this means is active revenue with Rippling for that end client instead of end clients. Okay. Now, one of the things you'll notice here is that, when you look at different other partner programs, when you're focused on the right types of customers with Rippling, um, when we start packaging in our HR, our talent suite, our finance suite, our contract values are much different than some of the, what I'll say, other payroll providers that are really focused on kind of the lower end of the market. Okay. So you have more realization in terms of potential rev share capabilities with Rippling than some of the other programs out there. No matter what you're doing with Rippling, we have preferred discounts for you as part of our partner program. So if you don't take rev share, that's okay. We're still going to give you preferred discounts on every single engagement that we work on with you. Okay. Whether you're in the partner tier or all the way up into the platinum tier level. The second one is that we have progressive revenue share if you want to take revenue share on every single active client that comes on board Rippling. Okay. The other thing that we do, and that revenue share is tied to all of our what we call recurring revenue products, our platform, our IT areas, our expense, some of our talent areas. And then what we do as well is we have different revenue share components on employee of record, which is done on a per employee per month perspective. And then we have different revenue shares with what we call our spend, our expense management product. As you can see on the bottom, if you incorporate the credit card or corporate card on that, that goes from a 250 to a 750 revenue share component as part of our new program. Okay. If the other way to do business with us from a partnership perspective is actually resell Rippling. And we have several accounting partners that resell Rippling today. What's that really mean? You are contracting directly with your end client, you're contracting with Rippling. You are basically doing a lot of the sales and marketing, of course, and you're doing a lot of the implementations with us as well. We train you on the implementations on how to implement Rippling. You can do that on the referrer side, but that's the real key difference on our resellers. Most of our resellers manage payroll, okay, as part of their core cash practice. That's a key piece of their service delivery. They have a lot more control over the pricing on how they want to go ahead and price that end client across our different modules. And then what we do is a progressive reseller discount depending on how much active revenue that you have on board with Rippling. Okay.
Mike, we've got a quick question. Somebody's
Yeah.
asking, we've already got a client, single client we've already set up on Rippling. If we get in with your partner program, would that client also transfer over, or is it only new clients?
That is a great question. Okay. So what we have decided to do is if any current client that is on board Rippling as part of our current partner program, we're going to continue to pay the structure that we've paid previously. So we're going to be running two separate programs, and every new client brought on board starting 2/1 will be into our new program. However, that revenue tied to that client that you brought on board previously will count towards this tier eligibility that I'm hovering over right now. So even if you brought clients on board previously, we're counting the tier eligibility revenue from all the previous customers that you brought on board that are active with us, as well as the new clients that are coming on board as part of our new program. So hopefully that answered that question there, Michelle.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, some of the other things that we're doing, and I'm just going to spin through this just so I can leave a few minutes open for some Q&A. I mentioned the preferred discounts, the revenue share, or you have the ability to resell Rippling. Once you get to our bronze tier, we'll do free firm payroll for the firm. Several of our partners use Rippling for themselves to take advantage of all that great efficiency that you can get from and unlock with Rippling. The other thing that you're getting from us is not only our client command center, you're getting dedicated implementation, VIP partner success, and one unified team across our account executive, partner success, and our account manager that works with every single one of our partners. There's certifications that we have available, continued education credits around CPE. We work with a lot of HR advisory firms too, so we have SHRM capabilities as well. And then we're building out our new workforce advisory community that's also supplemented by a lot of enablement toolkits that we're launching as well. So these are just some of the perks that we have available. We're relaunching our partner directory so we can connect all of our SMB clients directly to our professionals in our accountant program, so we can go ahead and connect you to have business development opportunities as part of that as well. Okay. All
Maybe
right.
just to like one piece here, Mike, not here, but when we have our community, we're really where we get into what we love about all of this, and bringing everybody in from CAS specifically, is they have a kind of like a seat at the table, and they
Yeah.
have a place to go to say, hey, could we tweak this? If this report does this, but it doesn't do this. And so I'm putting you on the spot, but can we
Yeah.
create that channel too? Because we're always trying to just improve products,
Yep.
and
So it exists today, Christine. And so there's two different avenues for us on that, right? Um, a lot of that product feedback gets brought through our partner success team. That gets brought up to our team that basically operates the accounting channel. Okay. We review that ongoing in terms of where we need to focus in terms of additional product requirements and releases. The second piece is that we have a formal advisory council as well. And a lot of our advisory council represents our entire accountant program and community, where we're prioritizing future roadmap items around that. As I mentioned earlier, one of the key things that came from around our community is this concept around pushing what we call packages out to clients so you can get quick implementation. That was a resounding thing that came not only through our partner success team, but also our RPAB members. And so that's why that's a big focus for us on our roadmap items as part of the Client Command Center in 2026.
yeah, and we talked about this week too. I mean, if you can speak on that conversion and onboarding, right? Because
Yeah.
us as CAS practitioners, it's our least favorite thing to do because we can't generally bill it to the client, and so we need people like
Yeah.
yourselves to make that super easy for us.
Yeah. I would say this, Christine, that's a little bit different, I think, on the rippling side. Number one, I believe that you can charge your clients for implementation. Okay. This is not just like a quick thing. I'm going to set up software real quick on a payroll like Gusto and run the payroll in 2 days, right? As we think about the depth and breadth here, like most of our accounting partners are charging implementation fees, right? As part of this. So that's number one to handle some utilization issues, right? I think the second thing, what I would say, depending on the depth and breadth of the products that I just described, you may
Hmm.
want to step into those for the end client and think about, adding modules as you kind of go along as well. But I would say that, based on setting up the workflows and the automations, I would say it's going to take a little bit more time than your kind of like simple payroll product out there. Okay. But here's the advantage more than anything else. Once you get those automations set up, it becomes extremely efficient to run. And then I think the other thing to think about as well, and this is a really important piece to kind of think about. Riffling can serve a two-employee company all the way up to a 10,000 employee organization domestically and globally. So when you think about the service models that Mark talked about at the very beginning of the call, do they need just software? Do they need PEO services, which we do? Are they coming off of a PEO because they don't need, the PEO and they still need compliance under our HR services? There's no re-implementation of that with Rippling. all those automations, all of those workflows stay intact. You're not moving from one system to another system, like a lot of other HCM companies out there. So there's like just no re-implementation, if you will, around that. So just think about that customer, think about their journey, think about how they can grow through different service models with Rippling and still be on that same core platform. Okay. So that's how I think about it, Christine, more than anything else.
The other thing I'm going to point out here, which is I think caused all of us a lot of heartburn, is a lot of payroll companies have an HR system, but they don't talk to each other. Where I feel like Rippling, all the data is in one place, and whoever I'm calling for support, they can see everything my client has and how it's connected, where I don't have to call 8 different numbers when I have an issue. It's one of the nice things. It's all in one platform.
That's right, Michelle. So when we were showing you earlier in that one slide where Mark showed the employee graph and talked about the legacy systems, everything's on separate databases. Everything's on the payroll piece first. And it's tough to like have that be fully unified. And then not only that, a lot of them are partnering with other companies around that. And everything that we've showed you here around the Rippling solution, even though we still have the ability to integrate with 600 plus different applications through an API. We have that already today, but everything that we showed you is Rippling built on that one unified platform, and that's a big distinction.
Right. We only have a few minutes left, so everybody, if you've got questions, you can come off mute, you can put it in the chat, or you can put it in the Q&A.
We did learn this week, though, some firms restrict Zoom chat.
Yeah.
So, but I think this is awesome. And yeah, I always just say too, open up the relationship and at least have an account ready so that when you have your clients, you're just ready to go. So I think that that's really important too. Just do the accountant channel legwork and have that
Yeah.
just.
Yeah, we know we have current partners on board this call, just based on a couple of the questions that came through. If you want to learn more, you can email Mark directly, at his email. He'd be happy to discuss, what we do around workforce advisory as well. We have many different education webinars coming up as well that we'll share with Christine in the community, so you guys are aware of that around workforce advisory. We're going to hit the pause button for the holidays and hit the pause button for January because we know how busy you guys are. But we'll start picking up our thought leadership and education on workforce advisory towards the end of February. Okay.
Awesome. Mark, Mike, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you guys.
You bet.
Love it.
Thank you.
Everybody
Yeah,
have a great holiday season and happy new year and much success with your CAS practice into 2026.
Thank you all.
guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Take care.
guys.